Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Vivid Service Management webinar this morning. This morning we have a presentation from HP, which will be a sneak preview of HPE's Propel 2.20 in Discover 2016. Next slide. Our host and sponsor, of course, this morning is HPE. Next slide. I'll be your host. My name is Laura Walker. I host a variety of Vivid's local interest groups around the country, as well as our Service Management Special Interest Group. And as a full-time job, I work for Stratacom. We've been a service management partner of HPE's for the past 10 years. Next slide. Today's speakers, we have Vesna Soraj, who's a Senior Product Marketing Manager with HPE for Propel. We also have CJ Johnson, who's a Chief Architect with HPE's Propel solution. Next slide. A few housekeeping items before we get going. This is a live session. It's being recorded. Recordings will be made available to all Vivid members via email afterwards with a link, as well as on the website. Questions and answers we'll be taking today. We'll address all the Q&A at the very end. If you have questions, please find the questions pane and enter those there. We'll address them at the end as we have time. Next slide. The webinar control panel, if you don't see it, simply click that orange arrow icon. It will appear. That's where you can enter your questions as well as chat. Next slide. And with that, I will pass it over to Vesna.
Thank you, Laura. Hello, everyone. This is Vesna speaking. Thank you for joining us today for this live webinar. Let's start with the agenda for today. I've talk shortly about service brokering, maybe 10, maximally 15 minutes. This is important to bring everyone at the same page. And following that, CJ will give us a demo of some key new features coming up in our next release, Propel 2.20. And again, then at the end, I will walk you through sessions that are related to HPE Propel. Because CJ is going to demonstrate you features that are not available in our currently shipping product, which is Propel 2.10, I have to present this slide, forward-looking statements, and the following HP confidential information capabilities that CJ is going to talk about and to demonstrate will be available in the next 3 months. Okay, so let me now really very quickly go over the service broker, if you want, talk about what is the business case for service brokering operating model. As we know, well, entire industries are being disrupted by new operating models. It's maybe already like cliche, but we need really to always think about how Uber turned the traditional taxi business on its head, or Airbnb really changed the rental market. So today, as CIOs are looking to be more relevant to business, the opportunity in front of IT is huge, but as we know, no opportunity without challenges. In the past, maybe until 6-7 years ago, this would be the picture how line of business was interacting with central IT. Whenever they needed, well, some IT service, in most of cases, well, shadow IT always existed, but in most cases there was central IT, and line of business had to use services that central IT prepared for them. Now, we also know what happened maybe again 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago, in particular because of the cloud services, how it became easy for line of business to procure cloud-based solutions without involving their central IT. Technology has been fundamental and strategic to line of business in this process of the digitization. Business users, also always acting as consumers, they have today information and knowledge about what solutions and services exist in the market, but not necessarily they are always aware of the limitations. How and whether it's going to integrate with other existing systems. Sometimes it's not even their business, you know, to think about that. Then there is there are aspects of security, data integrity, compliance with policies and regulations, performance management, in particular measuring service levels. it is then we see very easy we are coming into dealing with different versions of the truth, and this is where negative effects of shadow IT besides potentially high costs are very visible. At the same time, we know central IT is typically organized around key competencies. There are good reasons why is this like that. Sometimes this can also be perceived as silos. We also know IT is still too busy with building and maintaining infrastructure, applications. Most of our large customers are telling us they are still caught into that famous 70 to 30% ratio in favor of run the business versus change the business. Given opportunity and the speed of digital transformation in industries, we should not wonder that line of business are working directly with providers of technology and of cloud services. But they are still expecting that IT will take care of security, data integrity, integrations, compliance, contracts, vendor management. So if I dare to say, if IT and CIO are going to inherit potentially this mess anyway, then it's better if they get some help to stay in control. There is the whole new set of CIO's challenges, or in general, IT challenges. Also, the whole set of new priorities. In this digital world, every day there are new types of apps, data, also risks. So, CIO's challenge today is how to provide and demonstrate the value add. There are many new ways to build, operate, to consume services, and IT and CIO, it's also clear to them, to really everyone, they can't continue being just gatekeeper or the custodian anymore. They need to find a way to become the game changer. Now, what does it mean to be game changer? It really a crucial role here plays partnering, engagement with business, partnering with business in particular in that selection process of the tools and services. Then also, if we would be discussing what keeps CIOs up at night these days, they are really concerned, shall we be Uberized? Will my company be Uberized? They need to find a way to much faster respond to competitive threats, to work with line of business, to decide which services are relevant, to obtain them, to deploy alongside other applications and services. Then also it's really expectation from IT that they need to be able to see trends, to identify in advance opportunities to make good and quick decisions. Digital transformation brought a whole new set of priorities for the CIO, and according to Forrester Global Priorities and Journeys Survey from 2015, and it's shown here in this graph, at the top there was need to innovate on product or service offerings. Then the next was improve agility and flexibility of IT systems. Next was better integrate and partner more with other firms. That means we see these are all core things that belong to service brokering. In this particular report, Forrester also talks about need to reduce complexity by simplifying simply IT legacy. So in these two previous slides, I talked about the problems, I talked about the challenges. So what's now really, in short, what would be the solution? IT needs to become service broker. In most of cases, well, a vast majority of our customers, I can say they are already service providers. Now, this role is not going away. We don't expect that anyone in particular from our large customers, and these are typically large enterprises or also mid-size companies, we don't anyone, expect to start behaving like some startup maybe from Silicon Valley and to be 100% without data center that role of being service provider will stay, but in addition, IT needs to become service broker to provide also exceptional experience to customers and to users. When we say exceptional experience is really here to provide the service that business need or that business wants. And then a very important aspect is how that service can be consumed. That means to have mobile apps, that the experience is engaging, but primarily we are talking here about providing needed services. Primary role of IT is to ensure business can access and use services and applications that they need, that business needs to create new offerings, to increase revenue, to improve customers' experience. However, when it comes to consuming these services, line of business, definitely they want 100% independence. All that business really want, business users, they want to get involved in, they want to just to consume these services in a self-service manner. Definitely they do not want to get involved in managing vendors, service levels only. That means focus on using these services. Through service brokering, IT is really sheltering business users from making risky decisions on their own. Also, at the same time, IT staff is shifting from back office to the front office, orchestrating multiple suppliers, also orchestrating multiple implementations of these services. Like products in vending machine can be relatively easily exchanged because owners of the vending machines, they know very well what people want, or what products they're not selling that frequently, like maybe something else. IT as a service broker becomes really flexible and fast in selecting and onboarding new suppliers, and then aggregating, integrating, delivering services to the line of business. Technology is playing a more important role than ever, and the IT teams that orchestrate best customer experience with the most agility and at the best price are going to win. Now shortly about something about our product HP Propel. So I'm sure that we have a lot of people attending this webinar, and when you attended, when you listened to our previous, so lots of you, maybe we have product HP Propel, which delivers foundations of a service broker operating model. We help organizations deliver reliable, compliant services where and when they are needed for the business. And some key capabilities that we offer are shown here, and this is again really to bring everyone at the same page before we go to CJ, before he starts demonstrating what's coming up in 2.20. So key capability in Propel is a single user experience. We provide a single portal, we also call it front door to IT, which facilitates self-service for users and provider, and is providing really consumer grade experience. Next is Aggregated Catalog. Propel Catalog is aggregated. It aggregates multiple underlying service catalogs into one. In this way, we assure user orders services always from a single place. User does not need to think about, to go to maybe sometimes web pages, sometimes all kind of portals. A single catalog is integrated to multiple fulfillment systems. Next is systems of engagement. Aggregation as a capability. Aggregation enables us to provide systems of engagement for IT. Systems of engagement means we provide single engaging apps for most important business activities. For example, ordering a service, finding information, or maybe finding the whole knowledge article, submitting a support ticket, something does not work and I want to let my IT know they need to fix. We provide apps for these actions, and these apps are aggregating data and information from the backend systems of record, and systems of engagement really enables that single, unified, and consistent delivery and user experience. Few words about open integration. A very important component that belongs to Propel is called Service Exchange. Sometimes we say this is the backbone of the whole solution. So this is the component that connects, that integrates our front end, our single portal with all its content, with the back end or fulfillment systems. Customers, they can implement any backend system integration with Service Exchange without need to implement specific exchange format for their backend system, and therefore we say it's the open integration. Backend systems communicate with Service Exchange through REST APIs, and Service Exchange is also using unified data format independent of the backend system. Therefore, it is relatively easy to do it. When we speak about, Propel, what type of the use cases we are covering, we can, on a very high level, we can split everything into two types of use cases. Everything that I talked so far was so-called use case request to fulfill. That means where end user is requesting a certain service. The service, if approved, is going to be fulfilled, and a user can also consume service. There is the other type of the use case, which is about case brokering or case exchange. We know from that lots of our large companies, for example, they have multiple support ticketing systems for the different departments, and sometimes it can be very challenging how to integrate these systems, because typically everybody has its own data model and so on, and there are many other complications. Through this component I mentioned, service exchange, we can automatically and in a point to multi-point fashion of integration, we can really simplify that. This is very easy. There is a lots of reuse in this type of the integration, and this is really a huge simplification compared to many point-to-point integrations. Bring your own application and integration. With this, we want to say we are offering Sdk Toolkits to our customers, to our partners. There are two types of the Sdk Toolkits. One is this for the front end. It's called Jumpstart, so that the customers, that they can easily create their own web app. Web application that can run in our portal, and the other type of this toolkit is for the service exchange. That means if you would like to extend to create additional integration. Now I will hand it over to CJ. CJ, please go on, just that I stop sharing.
All right. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, thanks, Vesna. What we'd like to do today is show you a demonstration of some of the new features we have in 2.20. 2.20 is a big release for us. We got a lot of work done here. I'm really excited about some of the new capabilities. There's some new functionality that you'll see, and there's also some evolutionary implementation that we've added to some existing capabilities. So I'll talk through those and give you a quick overview of what we're going to demonstrate here in a few minutes. So for starters, one of the big things that we really focused on for 2.20 is new cloud capabilities. We've deepened our integration with cloud service automation, but we've also just simply expanded upon the capabilities that Propel brings to any cloud provider. As Vesna talked about, we really do visualize Propel as the front door to IT, which means that it can integrate with multiple back-end cloud providers and provide a solid interface for that. So specifically, we've implemented a new feature called services. Now, the My Services concept, if you're familiar with CSA, brings together both the services and subscription concepts and puts it together into a single application. It gives you group ownership and management, enhanced service control, but most importantly, it also brings the lifecycle actions to the interface and allows you to treat them as requests, which means you can do pricing and approvals on service actions as well, all part of the Propel portal. So we're really excited about that new user experience. I'll show you that here in a few moments. We've also enhanced on our bundle capabilities. In the past, we've brought the concept of bundles to Propel, but in 2.20, we've really deepened the integration here. We got a lot of feedback from our field and customers explaining that bundles needed to be more complicated, in that they needed to have some sort of sequencing, they needed to have optional capabilities, and we needed to be able to pass parameters from one bundled offering to another, while at the same time providing a simple user experience to do so. So that's exactly what we worked on for 2.20. I'll show you how to create a bundled offering and how to subscribe to one. We feel like that this really brings together the message of service brokerage into the product and allows you to do those more interesting use cases such as employee onboarding, and gives you a nice clean interface for doing that. And again, like I mentioned, the concept behind bundles is to allow you to take offerings from one or more service providers into a single offering, allow you to sequence those, make sure that they happen in order. So for example, with employee onboarding, you wouldn't want to maybe order the computer until you had their account provisioned, or you didn't want to order them a desk until order a laptop until the desk had been ordered, those kind of things. So by creating this bundle interface, we're able to do that, sequence those, and similar to, as I mentioned there, relative to the parameter passing, as you can see in the screenshot here, I can link the dependent inputs, items input parameters to the output parameters of any item preceding it in the bundled offering. You'll also see that this is a pretty simple user interface when it comes down to creating the bundle. There's not a complex stuff that you have to work with. Next, I'll show you a new business process for approvals that we've added to Propel. I'll show you what this means and how it can be used. This adds some really interesting capabilities to the Propel platform for the future. Right now, we're using it only for approvals. What this allows you to do is model business process and plug it into your approval process. We're also shipping a handful of approval templates out of the box, which you'll see here in a few moments. And I'll show you the editor for how you can adjust those approvals and manage how they're published and used in the catalog. There's a whole mess of other features and capabilities that we've added to Propel 2.20. Specifically, we have a persistent shopping cart. This works similar to how you might use Amazon. It's not a save for later. It's simply a persistent cart, which means if you log out of Propel and log back in tomorrow, the things that were in your shopping cart will be there again tomorrow. So persistent shopping cart was added. We've added a new dynamic data source user interface. This is a really cool capability for configuring dynamic options and dependent dynamic options in the catalog. We've had this capability since we've had the dynamic options since 2.01. But the feedback we got was it was too difficult to create dynamic data sources, and creating a new adapter was a bit cumbersome. So we really simplified that user experience and allow you to create dynamic data sources directly in the user interface for both RESTful JSON interfaces as well as XML or SOAP interfaces. We've added Reorder Resubmit capability. This was a frequent request we got for previous versions of Propel. We've improved the HA deployment of Propel 2.20, made it a lot simpler to deploy an HA system. We've really improved Request on Behalf. Request on Behalf is a feature that we've gone through several iterations on. And basically in 2.20 we've added more capabilities here. We've had support for Request For, which allows you to do kind of almost like a ship-to address relative to IT services, which allows you to, for example, choose for whom a service is being ordered. But the request we got from our customers was they really did also want Request on Behalf, which is a little different, where it allows you to browse a catalog as a different user if you have the permissions to do so and order on their behalf. So we added that capability, and we've also improved our roles-based access control for 2.20 as well. So with that, let me show you the product. Okay, so you can see. Okay, so today I went ahead and just logged in as an administrative user for Propel 2.20. As you can see here, the user interface hasn't changed much since 2.10. There's some incremental enhancements that you'll see as you're browsing the product, but nothing significant for 2.20. Again, most of the capabilities that we're demonstrating here are centered around the new capabilities that I talked about relative to cloud services bundles, business processes, and then a lot of the back-end capabilities that we've added. So today I just want to show you how to create a bundle. So here's a bundle that I created earlier, a very simple bundle, but it contains 3 different offerings that we've bundled together, one of which was optional. So I can obviously turn that on and off. We'll add it to the cart. And if any of these had input parameters, we obviously would be presented with those. So let me show you how to configure that. So today we'll just create a small bundle, something like, I don't know, we'll just create a new lab instance here. Demo, category. We'll just put it into the CSA catalog for now. All right, so again, pretty simple user interface. We've created a new offering here. We'll give it a handful of new items. Let's just do a two-tier web application. We'll make this, we'll give it a approval policy, which will be passive approval. Let's add that. Let's add another one. Something like, we'll run a database analysis on this after it's created. No approval policy required for that, and this one is optional. So what you see here is we've created a very straightforward bundle. Now I can actually go in here and create some dependencies between these. And this one actually doesn't have any output parameters. So we won't map any parameters today, but you can see here that it's very simple to create these parameter mappings between the bundled options. The other thing, of course, that we can do here is adjust the approval policy. What you saw there was actually something interesting. First of all, I can do approvals inside of Propel. Again, I'm going to show you here the business process editor in terms of how we can create approvals inside of Propel. And that's a key question that we're going to talk about here in a moment. But so I'll come back to kind of what approvals mean in the context of bundles and all that kind of stuff. But basically what we're able to do here is add approvals for each line item in the bundle. And they can be independent or they can be inherited from the top level approvals as well. So we've created this new bundled offering. Let's go ahead and publish it to a catalog. We'll just put this into the broker catalog. Get that guy here. Okay, so now we've created a bundle containing two offerings. If we had an output parameter, we would have been able to map those to the input parameters of the other offering. We've set up some approval policies. It's taken me about 30 seconds to do so. Each of these, by the way, is fulfilled. Actually, these are both fulfilled by CSA. We could very easily add one from a different catalog to demonstrate kind of what it means to have a, we'll just add a quick service anywhere one here. We'll make this one optional as well. Okay, so as simply as that, we've kind of realized the potential of this service brokerage capability, which allows us to cross multiple providers seamlessly. The end user experience for my bundle is, without knowing or caring, I'm actually touching both CSA twice and Service Anywhere once as part of the fulfillment of this bundle process. So again, we've had bundles in the past, but what we've done here is we've really taken it to the next level in terms of what we can do for sequencing and parameter passing to hopefully delight our customers with that new bundle capability. So bundles. I'd also like to show you the business process capability we're bringing to Propel 2.20. This is an exciting capability. One of the things to make sure that we're clear of here is kind of when and how this will be used, as well as what we're intending to do with these business processes. So let me open this thing and I'll show you what exactly we're talking about here. So business processes allow us to have a very clean and simple interface for drawing new business processes for approval. In 2.20, we're using it just for approval. And to be totally clear here, approvals in this case, what we're drawing out here are approvals that are 100% handled for inside of the Propel interface. You would use this in the example of fulfillment systems that don't have an approval tied to a specific offering and you want to add one, but really they add their most value to bundles. Bundles are obviously native to Propel and can only be fulfilled from Propel, which means if you want to do approvals tied to bundles, you got to do it in Propel. So that's where the business process capability really adds a lot of value for our customers. As soon as you start to realize that value, you're going to need business process approvals. We've had approvals native to Propel in the past. We've had named and user context approvals. The named means you hand it to one or multiple users and they can approve it, user context means it uses your manager as it comes from your enterprise LDAP system. Immediately you run into some issues with that, which is why we come up with the business process here. So there's a handful of basic ones. I'll show you this advanced approval one. So the advanced approval one is interesting here. First of all, we get a little preview of what the actual process looks like. We can see here that this is a price-based approval based on $100 for the price. So if it's less than $100, we do a passive approval and send it off to get approved. What you see here is kind of an escalating price approval process. So again, we've drawn this very simply, and I'll show you the editor here in just a moment. But the way this works is we have this kind of high-level approval. If it's more than $100, we pass it to the manager. You know what? I'm actually going to go ahead and open this in the editor because it'll be easier to read. All right. So for this particular process, if it's less than $100, we passively approve it, and we send it off and move the request on for fulfillment. If it's more than $100, we pass it on for manager approval. The manager, of course, can approve or deny the request. If they approve the request and it's more than or equal to $1,000, it goes off to the financial department for approval. If it's less than $1,000, it goes off and gets approved. There's also a timeout after 14 days to where if it sits either on manager or financial department approval for more than 14 days, it's automatically declined and the approval is denied. So, and again, you can imagine that this is, even though it seems pretty simple, which is, do some automatic approval, add some timeout, and so on and so forth, it's actually a fairly complicated process that a lot of our customers deal with in the enterprise context. So this editor allows us to work with that very simply, as well as customize and fine-tune it as we see fit. We can adjust these parameters and conditions and very simply go in here and adjust what these look like. There's a lot of, there's a palette of capabilities that we bring here. The named approval, user context approval, this is the capabilities we had in previous versions. We bring it into the context of the business process editor. Group approval is added here as well. But there's also a script task, which allows you to drop in some JavaScript and use it that way. Obviously, a lot of structural elements, which allow us to do sub-processes. So it's possible to build, through this user interface, some very complex business process approvals if that's what your business requires. But, and again, to try to keep this as simple as possible for our end users, we ship a handful that come out of the box. You can see here that these work very similar to catalog items in terms of working with them and publishing them, which means I can work with these offline, work with the editor without having to worry about impacting existing deployments of the system. We can see here, we'll just go look at a handful of these. The parameterized one is interesting because we can pass it parameters actually. So what you can see here is we've parameterized the approval context here, which means the actual passive and user context approval is handled by a parameter that we feed this, which means I can now, at the catalog item setting, determine which price requires an active approval, which is also very flexible and also a lot simpler to work with. Now I don't need to create a whole mess of approval policies, I can have a parameterized one that allows me to adjust the price and when it gets escalated effectively. So the business process is quite powerful. And you can see here a lot of the capabilities and features that we've added here. I'm pretty excited about the business process editor that we have in place here for 2.20, and I think our customers are going to like it as well. So last but not least, of course, is our services concept, like I talked about. Services concept is when we've really brought in some advanced new capabilities to the cloud use cases for Propel 2.20. And this is really interesting because it gives us some features that our customers have been asking us for. So specifically, group ownership, management of these concepts, the compression of services and subscription into a singular user interface that's easy to work with. That's exactly what we've been focusing on here for 2.20. So you can see here already, I have the appropriate permissions because I'm logged in as an administrator to see both my own as well as users inside of my organization, and I can manage their service instances as well. So let's open up the service instance and see what we can do here. So what you see here is a new user interface for what would be considered service instance details and service instance actions, as well as subscription actions, which was something new for 2.20. So the subscription actions that are enabled for this particular service is the transfer of ownership and cancellation. However, if you have more subscription actions, they'll show up in this menu over here. Transfer ownership was a key capability for 2.20, and of course we've added that here. So transfer of ownership is quite simple. Also importantly, you can see that I'm doing this as the org admin user for a service that's owned by a different user. So the Amy Lopez user owns this particular service instance. In this use case, perhaps she left the organization or now belongs to a different group. I can transfer ownership as the org admin to somebody else, which eliminates the problem of orphaned subscriptions, a key capability for 2.20. I can now go in here and have a new interface for getting those service instance details, gathering information, and working with it very simply. Also key is the modification concept. So service instance modifications, and you can see here, we can execute one of these, for example. Find one that has some actions. This deployment might not have any. We'll open up a different one here in a moment. Let's go back to my service list. Let's use this one. Okay, now we have some modifications that are visible to us. So for this deployed service instance, this one happens to be online, so now I can execute some actions against that. Of course, the actions are dependent upon the node that we're working with and what's been exposed as a service instance actions for that. And you can see here that this is a very simple form, but it allows me to take input parameters from the end user, pass those to the fulfillment engine, but importantly, I can now see exactly what's going on with that. When I click on modification, I can view the status of those requests as they're flowing through the system. If there was any approvals or pricing changes that were associated with that, I could see exactly what was going on, both as the org admin user, but also the end user. You can imagine the use case here, previously in the past in Propel, perhaps you had a service instance action that allowed you to add memory to a running node. Now, if you want to add 100 gigabytes of memory, that's a costly activity, especially if you're fulfilling those on something like Azure or AWS. You want to make sure that that passes through both a pricing context as well as an approval context. So what we've done in 2.20 is we've treated service instance actions, which are the actions you execute against a node, as requests. And you see and can track them as requests, and you visualize them in the user interface as requests. So again, that's a really cool capability and allows us to see the status of what's going on with it and where it's at in the flow, the parameters that I pass to it. I get a lot of visibility there. And if I had subscription level actions, I could, of course, execute those here. Now in 2.10, we brought the concept of support to the service instances, which we think is a key differentiator for some of our cloud capabilities, especially when you look at the entire suite of offerings that HPE can offer. Being able to link your cloud services to Service Anywhere, service management, or really any sort of support ticket interface is really cool. Being able to do that very simply, as well as pass parameters between them, is very interesting as well. What's great about the new interface with 2.20 is we've, again, simplified the user interface for that. We've made it easier to have a whole lot of them here, potentially. But also, you can track those requests directly from this interface. You don't have to go look at your support tickets to find relevant support tickets for this particular service, which is this two-tier web application. I can very simply and easily view any support requests that have been opened. In this case, I can go and open a new request, and similar to 2.10, it's going to map those parameters, whatever I've configured, to be passed to the ticket engine. And in this case, this looks like it's going to open up a service management ticket, if we were going to open up a ticket for that. Okay, so hopefully that gives you a view of the new capabilities we've brought for cloud services in 2.20. Really excited about those new capabilities. And if you have any questions on that, let us know towards the end here. All right, so with that, I'm going to jump back over to the slide deck, and we've got a few more slides to work through.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Okay, thank you, CJ, very much. Let's now quickly have a look what are the planned sessions about and around Propel and Discover. Next slide, please. Hopefully, most of you have heard about Discover, HPE Discover 2016. This is our biggest conference this year. It's happening on June 7th to 9th in Las Vegas. However, party really starts already on Monday on June 6th. Most of products will have the customer advisory councils. But what you can see on this slide, this is one of the slides I took from the presentation called Vivid Deep Dive V8076 HPE Propel Jumpstart and Service Anywhere APIs. This is the hands-on type session. It's taking place, that means on Monday, June 6th, between 1 and 5 p.m. It's 4 hours. First 2 hours will be dedicated to Service Anywhere APIs, and the second 2 hours, HPE Propel Jumpstart. Entire session will be delivered by R&D. For example, CJ is one of main instructors for Propel, and this is a session where you can learn really about the internal architecture. You can see, again, this is one. I simply took one of the slides from that deck. And most importantly, there will be labs. So please, if you are attending this session, bring your laptops. You will be able to create very simple web app that will then run in Propel portal. But you will get idea how to really use Jumpstart. Next slide, please. On Tuesday, that means now we are June 7th, early morning at 9:30, we are kicking off with a strategy and roadmap session. Bruno Labruera, our Senior Director and GM for Service Broker Business Unit, he is going to deliver the session. He will be joined by 2 PMs, and I know that they are providing a very entertaining and very cool demo of our solution. That means solution between Propel and Service Anywhere. I'm sure that there will be elements of CSA. And for example, this is the original slide from their presentation, the architecture of our service broker solution. Next slide, please. Then immediately after this strategy roadmap presentation about Service Broker at 11 a.m. still on Tuesday, there will be a session delivered by Forrester. Ignite your user experience with Service App Store. Rob Stroud, he's the principal analyst at Forrester. He will discuss why for CIOs today, why is user experience, this consistent, unified, end-to-end self-service experience, why is that important for digital workforce? And then he will discuss the concept of Service App Store. That means App Store that federates content from cloud and corporate service catalog. Again, this is one of many his slides from that deck. Next slide, please. Still on Tuesday, our product line manager for Propel, Michael Yang, who is, by the way, with us at this webinar, and I see he's diligently answering your question. So he will deliver theater session about the Jumpstart and how to add custom apps to Propel portal. Tuesday at noon. Next slide, please. Now we are on Wednesday at 11:30 a.m. We will have a very special business breakout session. We are bringing Jim Noble. Jim Noble is the CEO of Advisory Council. This is a non-profit organization that consists of 25 former CIO of Fortune 200 companies. And all of them, they are acting today as executive advisors. Now, Jim himself, he's a former CIO of 10 Fortune 100 companies, including Altria, General Motors, Merrill Lynch, AOL, and 7 others. And he's going to deliver a speech about digital transformation, where CIOs need to focus today. Why is that? And he will be also joined by our VP of Product Marketing, Roy Rittheller, and Stefan Olint, Director in our Strategic Marketing. This will be a very motivational and entertaining session. Next slide, please. Okay, so we are now already on talking about Thursday at 10:30 in the morning. My colleague Julie Azulai and I we will deliver this discussion forum. We'll discuss service brokering in the for the digital era, and it will be very, very interactive. We can have 12 attendees. So if you plan to attend Discover, if this sounds interesting, then please register as soon as possible. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is very, very important session. On Thursday, I'm sorry. I apologize. On Thursday at noon, we will have our enterprise services, HPE Enterprise Services. They're going to talk about how they implemented Propel to serve as a single portal and catalog for their virtual private cloud offerings. We will have a Michael Reed. He's Vice President at Enterprise Services. He's going to deliver this presentation. Here's again one of his slides from his presentation. For example, this is the architecture of their environment and the whole marketplace portal. This layer that you see, all this was implemented in Propel. Next slide, please. I hope that my voice is going to get better. Okay, so this is my last slide. So last but not the least, as every year we will have a roundtable. So this year we have 4 roundtables related to Propel, always moderated by either our product managers, R&D partner. One of them I'll be moderating, so you are really welcome to attend more than one. We have one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday, because content attendees and the moderators will be different. And with this, I would like now to turn over to Laura to go through the last slides, and then that we also see whether we have some questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We have quite a few questions flowing in, so we'll see how many we can get through in the next few moments here. The first question I have, are these workflows behind approvals implemented in OO or Cloud Slang or something else?
No, they're not using these particular ones, which are the business process approvals, are in a business process engine separate from OO and Cloud Slang. It's something that's included with the Propel platform.
Okay, thank you. Next question, can the order on behalf function be limited on the organization level, or is this an open OOB function? That means the OOB user can raise an order for everyone in this company?
Yeah, great question. It can be configured either way. We've had several customer requests, both in both directions. It's kind of an interesting feature question we get, which is, and it truly conflicts with one another. So that's why we made it configurable. You can have it turned on for the entire organization, or you can also limit it based on permissions.
Okay. I have a couple of questions that are similar. Folks are wondering, with the newest versions of Service Manager, will there be a Propel component included? Will it be a separate cost, or will it be added in?
Good question. Michael, can you help me with that one?
Yes, actually, I already provided an answer. So with Propel SM and CSA, HPE product, for example, they will use the Propel technology component, and that's part of the HPE Service Manager and CSA roadmap.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And I'm not sure that everyone can see the answers that are being typed into the Q&A pane, so for a couple of those, that's why I'm recapping for anyone who might be dialed in only by audio, so we can get that information out. And that's a common question I've been hearing a lot of, so I thought we could address that for everyone on the phone here. The next question I have, can you add workflow logic while a customer is ordering that stops them from continuing? For example, is spreadsheet attached? If no, then you can't continue ordering this item.
Yeah, good question. I mean, the short answer is not really. We do have validation on the input parameters, so we can validate the parameters have been filled out. I want to distinguish the difference between that and a workflow process as part of ordering. Those are two different things. So the question indicates the prior, which is, can we do validation and make sure we don't submit an order if something's missing? The answer to that is yes. We can support input validation and ensure required inputs are gathered before we submit the order. Customizing the workflow request process isn't a functionality of Propel 2.20 right now. It's something we're looking at for the roadmap.
Great, thank you. Next question, can attachments provided by the user during ordering be passed along to the fulfillment record itself after submission?
Attachments as part of comments. Well, first of all, I mean, we can do attachments as part of the ordering process. You can also do attachments relative to actions on support items, relative to actions on that would be like a order action. So we did add in 2.10, we added support for comments. So you can interact with operators for service requests. But I don't think we support attachments right now for like a post-ordering interaction on service requests. We do that for support requests at the moment.
Okay. I'm not sure on the wording on this question, but maybe you can figure out the intent behind it. Does OO still require with Propel 2.20 for case exchange?
Yeah, so good question. Case exchange is still a key part of Propel. And the question there is part of, kind of the evolution of the case exchange process. So we're moving on to what we're calling case exchange kind of V2, which is a new process for case exchange. We've been putting a lot of time and energy into this to try to make this more robust and more scalable, basically. So the short answer to that is OO can still be used as part of the case exchange flow. However, it's not required anymore for the case exchange V2. It's optional to use OO flows as part of the case exchange v2 process and flow. You can now optionally use JavaScript if you want to, or OO. Either is supported, and you can head down either path depending on the requirements of your case exchange business process that you're trying to put together.
Great, thank you. The next question Michael did answer via text, but for anyone listening in, I'd like to address it because it is a common question again. This person mentioned, we're a service manager user. Would I be able to use Propel as a single user interface to log incidents and change requests?
I don't want to step on Michael's answer. Michael, do you want to put a verbal answer on that?
I can answer that one. So Propel is a single user end user portal and catalog solution, and that's what it intended to be. So it's meant to be what we call system engagement, where end users can come in and interact. In terms of doing like a back-end processes where IT systems like Service Manager does created in terms of incident management, change management, request fulfillment management, that is not an area where we will focus on. So if you're an SM user, and if you have an IT service desk person or change management person doing incident and change management, you should continue to do that with an SM. Similar analogy could be made with HPE's cloud service automation, where CSA does a great job in terms of doing the cloud resource management, fulfillment, design. That should continue to be done in CSA. So the short answer is that is no. So SM incident change, anything related to backend fulfillment, that should occur within the backend fulfillment system like Service Manager.
Okay, great. The next question, will Propel 2.20 support request synchronization?
Yes, great question. The short and definitive answer to that is it will support that for Service Manager and Service Anywhere.
Great, thank you. I believe we have a follow-up question on one of the most recent answers. This user mentioned he noted the answer around using Service Manager for ITIL backend processes. However, can I use Propel Portal as a single user interface to log incidents or changes or redirect for backend process fulfillment?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tag on to Michael's answer there. I mean, the short answer to that is yes. Yeah, I mean, it is designed to be that user interface for it. Where it gets a little complicated is that back end comment there, and kind of the boundary and question where that belongs. Propel is designed to be your consumerized interface for your end users. It's not designed to replace your operator console. That's probably still going to be the fulfillment engine that your operators log into. So that's why I get a little hung up when we talk about like back-end business process and things like that. A lot of those do get exposed as part of the portal catalog, both for the support and service catalog. So Propel is designed to be your front door to everything IT, but again, front door is that key word, and it's designed to be that place for your consumers, your end users to interface with your IT organization. Hopefully that clears that up a little bit.
Okay, great. I think we can get through a few more questions. This next one, I'm not sure about the wording, but again, maybe you can interpret what he's asking about. The question is, what is about approver delegation?
It's about approver delegation. About approver delegation. Well, I guess in 2.20, we do support approvals that have been delegated. So delegated approvals are supported. There's no user interface for configuring approval delegation in Propel 2.20. However, we do support approvals that have been delegated.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that answers that question. The next one, did dynamic option lookups get easier to configure in 2.20?
Yeah, this is a really cool feature. I didn't have time to demo it today, but I mentioned it in kind of the new features. Like I said, some of the feedback we got in previous versions was it was difficult to set up a dynamic dependent lookup or a dynamic lookup to an external system. We added a really cool new feature which allows you through the user interface, without requiring you to cut any code, to call out to external APIs and pull those options into your dependent dynamic options. So that's a really cool new feature of 2.20.
Great, thank you. The next one, do approvals still work in the fulfillment systems? Are you required to use business processes?
Yeah, and this is a good question because and I tried to highlight it during the demo a little bit there, which will be kind of the question of approvals, especially with the new business process capability, and when and how you should use those. Like I mentioned during the demo, this is primarily geared towards offerings that have no approvals in your fulfillment system that you'd like to add one to, but really it's most commonly used for bundles. And the short answer is this does not supplant or replace approvals as part of your existing fulfillment engines. This is supplementary and fulfills those existing use cases for bundles, or, like I said, offerings that lack approvals that you'd like to add one to. It's not designed to, example, replace your approval engine in Service Anywhere or Service Manager. Those work great, and you should continue to use those if it makes sense for your offerings.
Okay, great, thank you. We had a couple more just pop up. What's the official release date of 2.20?
Maybe I can. Okay, if you want Michael to answer that.
Yeah, I can take that question. So as many HP customers know, yeah, we're bounded by in terms of the rev rec rule, in terms of communicating that date. But what I can tell you is that in terms of upcoming next release of Propel, you can preview it at the Discover that's coming up in Vegas next week. So I think you can guess from there that we're very close to in terms of releasing the next release.
Okay, great. And the last question that we'll take today, what is new with bundles in 2.20?
Sure. I think hopefully we covered that well with the demos there today, but really what's new with it versus what we've done in the past is, again, the ability to sequence, pass parameters, and make certain options in the bundle optional, basically. So sequencing, options, and optional are the new stuff for 2.20.
Okay, great, thank you. If we go back to the slide deck, I believe we have a couple of closing slides to address.
Great.
So again, Discover 2016 will be in Las Vegas coming up very soon, June 7th through the 9th. We do have vivid discount codes provided at the registration link on this slide. If you need a copy of it, feel free to email me. I'd be happy to provide that to you. There's lots of great reasons here that we've covered about why you should attend this event. Next slide. All right, wonderful. I'd like to thank HP again for hosting us today. If you wouldn't mind taking this short survey and opt in for more information from HPE, we would very much appreciate it. I hope we'll see many of you in Discover coming up and on our next webinar as well. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.